talking
Ted,
about
that's
our
Fred.
jobs.
Ted and Fred.
Ted and Fred.
Are these new names? This is not a thing.
Ted
I
and Fred
don't-
are
I just
dogs.
made
They're
it up.
best friends. Tall dog and small dog. Have you not read that book?
I'm so sorry, no. That's why she does the book club and I do the research. She actually
So
does
true.
children's books.
So true. This program book club started as something called Big Talkers. So we would go into like a daycare. We would have our kiddos at up to 3 who are delayed in their language, and then we would have those typical kiddos at the daycare. And we would use the dialogic reading book strategies with these kids and typical kids in like a direct service. Then we would give the parents the book that we read and a little strategy information, and we say, go home and do this. COVID happened, we couldn't go into the daycare anymore, so we ended up jumping on a Zoom call with the families that would take their kids to the daycare for Big Talkers, and we called it Book Club. We were teaching them a book reading strategy that they could use with their kid at another time. Because it was over Zoom, we knew we maybe wouldn't get the engagement from the kids that we wanted, so we always tried to gear it towards being a parent coaching service. It doesn't matter if your kid's not paying attention right now. We're just gonna teach you this information, these dialogic reading strategies, and see if you can do them at home with just a little bit of coaching. Historically, they've been used in like classroom settings. So like teachers would use them with students, just like we were doing at the daycare. We would look through books. The point is to have like a teacher and a child interaction where there's conversation flowing about a book. So instead of like passive child listening to somebody reading them a book, it would be a conversation back and forth. So there are some branches of dialogic reading, and one of those is called PEER, so peer strategies, and that's the one that we use in our book club. So it means prompt, evaluate, expand, repeat. And we teach these strategies to a parent so that they can get their kid to talk back to them during a book share.
Can I
Would you
add?
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
Just that I remember even as like a kid that my mom would do like story time at the library or whatever, and I distinctly remember her like holding up the book and being like, "Oh, you guys aren't listening, so I'm not going to finish the book or whatever." And that is the exact opposite of what this is supposed to be doing. Is dialogic reading is really this opportunity to engage with children, and if children aren't interrupting you and they aren't talking and pointing and saying things, then there's something wrong here. Like, what can we do to help the parent do the back and forth or change the book up so that it's something that they can engage with and really be interested in?
And we even know that kids at this age are not super good at like sitting and listening to a book being read to them, right? And even our kids that have delays, they don't want to just sit and listen to this book. They're running around. Engagement is tricky. So more than anything, it really has helped build the parent-child interaction in a book share to just be super positive that they're going back and forth and having a conversation. The structure of the class, so they jump on the call. There's usually 4, 5, 6 families on a call with a teacher. We would take them through a little setting of an expectation so they know the point of this lesson is for the parent to learn something and not for your kid to stay engaged for the full 30-minute call. We know that they can't do that. So we teach them a strategy, sing a little hello song so the kids can have a social interaction. Parents would learn a strategy, and then we start asking reflective questions. What's your kid liking about this book? Hey, Johnny and Jason, unmute and tell me what's your kiddo interested while you're looking at this page. Just trying to get that one-on-one of how can you use this strategy, even though we're looking at a couple different examples of what a kid might be interested in. Everyone has the same book. We mail them the books in advance so they don't have to go buy it, which is also a cool perk because they get access to a lot of books that they maybe would never have seen or bought before. Strategy learning, reflective questioning, we sing a goodbye song, and then just make sure that families have a good plan when they leave the call. Because it's a parent coaching service, if they don't have a plan, then the therapy's not complete. So make sure that they have a plan before they go for the rest of the week. That's what it looks like. 30 minutes once a week, and we try really hard to always have it be a group setting so that they can have a social interaction with each other. We try to keep it around 5 or 6 kids. If we go much more than that, not only do we not have enough books, but we usually can't get enough parent reflective questioning going back and forth. So we want every parent to unmute at least 2 times so that they can have some way of going back and forth with the teacher to make it individualized. And then we know that parents learn from each other on the call. Like if one parent has an idea, sometimes I will have another parent say, I'd never thought about it. I'm so glad you said that out loud, so that they can have some of that kind of banter. We send them a return mailer, and they do like a month at a time. So we'll send them a month's worth. So it's usually 4 or 5 books, depending on how many weeks are in the month. Yeah, so we have two classes. We have a Wednesday class and a Friday class. So the Wednesday class always stays together because they all get the same set of books, and then Friday always stays together. We have two different teachers. One of them's an SLP, the other one's what we call communication specialist. So all of our teachers, both of our teachers, are trained on this class structure. So the way that we want to offer it so that the research really doesn't change. We're not looking at the teacher's abilities to teach the class, right? So some of the important themes that both of the teachers will use is going or shifting back and forth between their child modeling voice and their parent coaching voice. So I might have the book and I'm trying to engage the child on the Zoom call, or all the kids on the Zoom call. So I'm modeling whatever the strategy is. And then I'll switch over to my parent coaching voice and I'll say, so parents, if your kid didn't care about that or they didn't like that, here's what you could do instead. So I'm trying to really engage both at the same time. That's probably one of the main features that the teachers would have to learn that we haven't really done in the past. Otherwise, I don't think there's anything specific about teacher differences there. Yeah, I think that's the main thing that we wanted to show. When book club changed to be a virtual service, we really didn't know if we were doing what we intended to do back when it was big talkers of really children gaining more expressive vocabulary, so learning more words. So part of the research was to make sure that parents were having the experiences of learning a new strategy, learning new information, and being able to implement it with their kids, and then in turn the kids obviously making gains in their talking.
So I've been working with Marla and Sue Olson and Barbara about like virtual services. They did a survey during COVID about like, how is this going for families and would you continue to do virtual services or not? And it's just been this really interesting shift culturally, like that we can do virtually, but for up to 3 and other early intervention programs, this is really a big deal because especially with the current political climate and funding availability, that there's just a difficulty to have enough funding to reach all the kids who are in need of services, especially in rural areas. And although virtual services also provide a way to reach to those families, it also provides a cost savings to the programs, that they don't have to do the mileage and the personnel, like the time doing all those sorts of things. So this is really innovative and groundbreaking for programs in general, but it's really innovative and helpful for programs so that they can make ends meet and still provide really high quality services that are making an impact for families and children while also being able to meet their bottom line.
No, I want you to talk about the research.
Yes.
Sorry, Audrey.
Good, because I didn't know any of the stuff that you just said about the book club. This has been really informative.
We're all learning.
That's why we're a team.
So the research studies specifically, we need to give a shout out to Sue Olson, who funded it. That she really approached Kirany and said, we're interested in whether this service is making a meaningful impact, because if it is, then we want to be able to share it with other programs. And if it isn't, well, then why are we doing it? But as Kirany mentioned, I think that we're seeing a lot of really anecdotal growth. You know, children are doing well. Can we attribute it to this class? And so as a first step, what we looked at was the data that the program already collects. So it's all housed by the state, which meant that we just had to ask the state permission to use the data. And we are able to look at just trends. Before they entered this program and after they entered this program, what were their scores? And we found statistically significant changes in a lot of key areas that we would expect that there would be changes. So that gives us confidence that this program is actually doing something for children, expressive and receptive language scores, which is really exciting that it's doing something. So the next step that we'd like to see is to have a comparison sample, that we want to see if the changes that we see in these children are sustained even when we compare them to children who didn't have the class, right? That these children are learning, they're growing, they're developing in general, and we want to know the changes that we saw in this preliminary study. Is it just because they got older, or is it because of this class specifically when we compare them to people who didn't get the class? The key areas that we saw significant growth in were receptive language, expressive language, attention and memory, and parent interaction.
Which is what we had expected and wanted to see, so that was so good, so rewarding.
Yes, there was 4 other areas that are collected by the BDI. I don't remember what
Battelle
BDI.
Developmental Inventory.
Yes, so there were 4 other areas that didn't show significant difference from pre to post, and that actually, again, plays into this narrative that this program may be doing something to improve the things that it's actually meant to improve, because those things that weren't targeted in the program didn't have significant growth. I also need to say that significant means statistical significant. The group at the beginning looked very different from the group at the end, but that doesn't mean that all of them were super, super low and now they're superstars. That there was obviously some changes, but statistical significance is different than practical significance.
The other thing I'm thinking on is future themes of the research. We've just gotten the knowledge that kids' scores have improved. I'm really interested in a parent's perspective, and this is kind of ongoing where we just need more participants in order to get the information, but a parent's pre-video versus post-video, the first video they ever did with their child of going through a book versus after they've taken book club and what that video looks like. Does the parent have more skills? And that's something that we want to also prove.
Yeah, we've been gathering some of that data, and it is slow going.
Parents don't want to be on a video.
No, it's hard, but it really is really exciting to be able to look at those actual behaviors and say you're qualitatively different at pre and post, but we don't have the sample size to say anything about that at this point. Like that's actually where we started, was we wanted to have parents do this more practical, like you just started the program and now you've been in for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
How did it change, sort of thing. But recruitment was slow enough that we decided to pivot and do the secondary analysis instead.
It is cool.
We should go back and look at that and see how it's going. We can at least say something.
Yeah.